Hey guys, I have an employee, an office manager that's been with me for a long time now, 7 or 8 years. And last night I got an email from her telling me to get off my butt and make a video. But she had a specific request. She wanted me to answer all the questions that she's been getting over the last 6 months to a year that pertain to me. She said that she's not going to answer them, so I need to. And she sent me an email list that I just opened up here a couple minutes ago. I wanted it to kind of be a surprise. I wanted to be able to give you kind of my just off the cuff reaction to some of the questions. And anyway, that's what we're doing here today. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in here and just start answering the questions. She told me that they were in no particular order, so we'll see how that goes. I may filter them out a little bit. I'm not necessarily going to go in order myself. But with that said, let's take a look at these and see what people are asking about. First question. What was my first business and how many businesses have I owned? My first business, depending on your definition of business, may not be really what you're expecting. I raced motorcycles professionally before I was even a teenager, and then I went on, when I turned 16, I went on and raced cars professionally. For anyone who's ever done that, they'll tell you that that's definitely a business, but it's not really the type of business that most people think of, because it's almost always a losing proposition. There's an old saying that if you want to make a small fortune, go racing and start with a large fortune, and that's pretty much true. But that was my first, I think, real legitimate taste of the business world. As far as how many businesses I've owned, and I'm not counting any online businesses right now, but I have either started and or purchased roughly 36 businesses over my adult life. I have found that I prefer actually now to purchase a business that's failing rather than start a new business, because there's already an established customer base. Even with a failing business, there are some customers there, and you can usually acquire those customers at a fraction of what their actual value is. But with that said, I don't really go out anymore. I'm not looking to invest in brick and mortar stores anymore, brick and mortar businesses. I do it more as a hobby, or I do it as kind of a personal challenge. I've helped several people in the last few years start businesses where I've come in and I've handled, I usually have been an investor in the business, and I have come in and probably taken over something like their marketing to make sure that they actually do marketing, because that's basically the lifeblood of any business, whether it's brick and mortar or online. But I go into those endeavors, rarely. And only when I see something that I think is really a challenge, or something that's really intriguing, or something that I can learn from. But anyway, so that's your answer. It's about 36 businesses over the last 35 years or so, roughly. Let's see. What was my first Amazon product? I've talked about that in a couple of videos before. My first Amazon product, and my only Amazon product for probably the first roughly 8 years or so, that I sold on Amazon, was a pair of socks. Just fell into this product by pure luck. It was a type of sock that I'd been wearing for years myself. It was a thick, kind of a hiking type sock, and it just so happened the sock was manufactured by a company in the city that I grew up in and where I lived. And they had a factory outlet store that sold seconds and rejects and whatnot. And I'd been buying these socks for years. So when I decided to do business on Amazon, I thought, I'm just going to try selling something I have easy access to. It was literally about a 3-mile drive to this outlet store, and I could buy these socks in bulk. So I went over and bought like 100 pairs and sold them via, FBM for about 8 years. They were actually very successful. I wish I could still buy those socks. Unfortunately, the factory that made them, they finally went out of business or moved to another country. I think they went out of business. They'd been there for something like 130 years. but it was a very profitable item to sell. Towards the end, the last couple of years, I was actually buying them by the pound in these large, roughly 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot crates that tended to weigh about 500 pounds. But I would buy the socks by the pound, go ahead and put them into envelopes that were packaged either 1 pair or 2 pairs, and then list them on Amazon, and they sold like crazy. It was actually a sock that was a proprietary sock for a large brand name in the hunting and outdoors world, but these socks had no identifying marks on them, and these were socks that had been rejected for one reason or another. I had never had a single pair of socks returned because of a defect, and I sold many thousands of pairs of socks. So I never found out myself what made these socks turn into rejects. I think they may have actually been socks that were made over maybe the quota that was requested, and they were just extras. I don't know, but I was certainly happy to have access to them, and very easy access at that, for a number of years, and I wish they'd come back. The second question from the same person, I'm guessing, is what was my most successful product ever? At the time I had a partner, but back a number of years ago, you can probably date this yourself, back when the Razor scooters were just all the rage, and the people went crazy over them. You couldn't find them anywhere for 2 or 3 years in a row at Christmas. My partner and I were bringing those in from, or let me revise that. We weren't bringing in Razor scooters, but we were bringing in basically the clone of a Razor scooter, and we were bringing them in by the container load. We stayed one step ahead of the competition for several years by adding features, adding accessories and whatnot to our offerings that revolved around these scooters, and we made a lot of money. It's been far enough back I couldn't tell you how much, but I mean it was it was a large amount of money over a period of about 4 years that we carried that product, and you know, that was probably the thing that really opened my eyes to what Amazon could do, because you know, this was far enough back to where people really weren't sure about the whole e-commerce thing, and you know, there's nothing like watching your bank account grow, you know, by a significant amount every week, for you to realize that, you know, e-commerce is the real deal. And okay, so that was my most successful product ever. With that said, though, I've had products. I have products now that probably over their life have made more money, but I have products now that I've carried for, you know, 8, 9, 10 years. So you know, yeah, over their lifespan, they probably have made more than the scooters made for us, but the scooters made it very, very quickly, as opposed to just a nice steady flow of income. Will I be going back to China for Canton Fair again? Yes. You know, I've made a couple of videos on this channel about going to China for Canton Fair, which, you know, is an amazing experience. You know, I'm going to have some more videos. I actually have some videos I've made about how to travel to Canton for this fair, or how to travel to Guangzhou rather for the Canton Fair, and how to do so, you know, inexpensively and easily, and just ways to make the trip a lot easier. And I have not posted those yet or made them public yet because of the pandemic that we're in. I just think it's kind of premature, but I will post those as soon as you know, the situation becomes a little bit more clear in terms of the availability of travel. You know, I want to make sure the information I give is correct and accurate, and I don't know right now, I don't think anyone knows, you know, what China is going to do in terms of visa, you know, the application process, the entrance process, and things of that nature. It may be a couple of years before things get back to something that looks like normal. But absolutely, as soon as I can go back to Canton Fair, I intend to go back, and I will be taking students with me again. You know, when we were there in October of 2019, We had a great time, but more importantly, it was a very productive time for all of us. It's the type of experience that you basically go over in your mind for, weeks or months afterwards, because you're just overwhelmed with ideas, overwhelmed with possibilities, and it's an amazing experience. If you're going to sell on Amazon, it's not essential that you go to Canton Fair, but if you are selling on Amazon and this is something that you want to do long term, I think going to Canton Fair should be high on your list of priorities, because no matter what you think the potential is for Amazon, when you go to Canton Fair, you realize that you are greatly underestimating the potential. It's just amazing. So anyway, moving on. What is my definition of success? Okay, that's a fair question. For me, I've given this a lot of thought over the years. I've been thinking about this kind of thing since before most people probably would have been thinking about this type of thing. I think I was asking myself this kind of question maybe even as early as junior high school. But I've always wanted control of my life. I remember years ago, a long time ago, saying, I didn't want to ever live in a situation where somebody could just jerk my chain whenever they felt like it. And I've been fortunate in that, I've never had that situation. Very fortunate. For those of you that, had that situation in your workplace and you've been dealing with that for years, I feel for you. I just can't imagine what that would be like. For the most part, though, I've had, I have maintained control of my life for my entire adult life. Let's see, how else can I answer that question? Definition of success. Financially, I guess you'd say, I always wanted to have enough money to pay the bills. There was a time when I was very young, late teens, early 20s, where I kind of had this idea that I was going to have a financial empire, whatever that meant, and it means different things to different people. But I had kind of a template laid out where I was going to do, I had multiple businesses that I felt could contribute to each other, and I could have one large business that was really greater than the sum of its parts. And I started putting those plans into action, but I realized that it took me down roads that I really didn't have any interest in. There were some business elements there that I just didn't really enjoy and didn't want to deal with long term. So, it changed a little bit, but from a financial standpoint, it was just always a question of being able to pay my bills, being able to, do anything within reason that I wanted to do. It was never about the exotic cars or, private jets or what have you. I mean, I've never had the kind of money that would allow me to buy a private plane or a private jet, but I've had the cars, I've had some boats, I've owned multiple houses at different points in time, and I kind of went through the whole capitalist asset accumulation phase in my early 20s, and by my late 20s I was a little bit back down to earth again. I found out that having a bunch of houses in different parts of the country didn't do you any good when you worked all the time, and you really didn't want to change that because you enjoyed what you did. It just didn't make sense to have a house at the beach that I went to twice a year for maybe a week each time, and I didn't like renting out my house, so ended up getting rid of my house, and I've been very happy. Now when I need a house at the beach, I rent one for a week. I don't have to worry about the maintenance or upkeep or hurricanes or anything of that nature. It's not, it doesn't absorb any of my brain power. It's not something I'm always worried about when I see weather reports, usually in the late summer or early fall in North Carolina where there are hurricanes headed our way. I don't worry about it anymore, and I'm happy for that. And I guess success on a personal level, again, I just wanted to always be able to, you know, take care of the people around me, provide for the people, you know, that were in my family, handle my personal responsibilities as my parents aged and whatnot. And I was able to do that, fortunately. And so, you know, that's it. For me, it wasn't about things so much. I mean, maybe initially, and I think that's normal for almost anyone. We live in a society that is trying to sell you stuff all the time. So you think, hey, I'm making money, I need to buy a bigger house. Or I'm making money, I need to buy a boat, or what have you. And like I said, I went through a little bit of that myself. But for the most part, it was just really a question of having personal freedom, and not having to, you know, modify my plans to suit someone else. There's a line from one of my favorite TV shows, Billions. For those of you who haven't seen Billions, I think you ought to look it up. It's an entertaining show, or at least I think so. But anyway, the lead character in this show is a billionaire, and I think in the first season he had a situation where he was in conflict with someone, and he made the remark, you know, and if you're sensitive to language, you know, put your fingers in your ear for a second. But the remark was, you know, what's the use of having fuck you money if you don't tell somebody to fuck off every now and then? That has stuck with me. I thought that was kind of funny at the time, and I, you know, I've never told anyone that in so many words, but you know, it's liberating to know that, you know, if you find yourself in a bad situation where you're not being treated properly, you can always walk away. You know, you're not in a situation where you have to just kneel down and take whatever is thrown at you in order to earn a living. So anyway, that may be a little vague for some people, but let's move on here. Let's see, what is my educational background? This one comes up a lot, and I'm looking down. I've got my computer in front of me if y'all wonder what I'm looking at. You know, I see down below here there's another question asking about education in a sense, so I'm going to answer those two together. But my educational background is pretty extensive. I went to school for engineering. I was a triple engineering major. I left school about 3 months before I was supposed to graduate because of family illness. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and I left school and went back to run the family business while he was recuperating. I took several years off from school. In 1987, I went back to school, but not for engineering. I went back and got a business degree and then got an MBA. And then I found myself a few years later living, you know, literally within a very short walking distance to one of the schools in my state, one of the state universities. And I had a family member who worked at the university, and I could get a family discount to, you know, essentially attend school. And I took advantage of it, and I went into graduate studies there to a degree that it's kind of hard to imagine, but I tend to throw myself into things when I'm really excited and engaged. And you know, I was not degree seeking because I felt like I already had all the degrees I needed. But with that said, I pursued and completed you know, master's level work in multiple disciplines. That there was really no connection between the various fields of study other than just I had an interest in them. And I've continued to take classes for, you know, the last 20 years. I'm fortunate. I live in North Carolina. We have a great university system here with a lot of campuses, and you know, I live within a short drive, I mean minutes, of several campuses, and I avail myself of those resources, you know, on a regular basis. Over the last year, this is really probably the first year almost in my entire life that I have not been enrolled in a class somewhere. I enjoy higher learning, and I don't anticipate that's going to change. I will probably continue taking classes for many years to come. Matching that up with this other question down below, and I just lost it. Let's see here. Where is it? Oh, would I advise someone who is about to enter college to go to college or university versus starting a business? And first of all, I don't see that as being a binary choice. I don't see that as something that's doing one prohibits you from doing the other. Certainly, when I was in school, again, I was a triple engineering major, and I was working my butt off in school. But I started a business and ran it out of my apartment, and it's actually, it was one of the most successful businesses I've ever owned. And I can say, very clearly that, I sold that business in 1987, and the proceeds from that business set me up for life. I was 24 years old, and but that was started from my apartment, in Atlanta when I was at school at Georgia Tech, and I grew that business. It became a pretty substantial business. So, now with the possibility of doing e-commerce, where your business can be, drop shipping, Shopify, Amazon, who knows what. You can sell anything online these days. I don't see why going to school would prohibit you from starting a business, or why starting a business would prohibit you from going to school. If you are absolutely put in a position where you have to choose, it's a hard question for me to answer. I value education very highly, but if you are an inquisitive person, if you're a very curious person, and a competent self-learner, if you know how to, do research, and you're willing to, you're willing to have an open mind when you pursue something, I might tell you to start a business. In fact, I probably would. I think the opportunity for starting a business right now is better than it ever has been, and I'm saying that in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm aware of that. But there are, with every crisis comes opportunity, and I have watched businesses around me over the last year go out of business because of the pandemic, and I have watched other businesses open and thrive because of the pandemic. If you're resilient and focused and willing to put in the effort, I think starting a business now is a great opportunity. It's never been easier to scale a business than it is now. It's never been easier to attract and retain clients or customers than it is now. So, I'm not going to give you an answer strong one way or the other. Again, I don't see the two as being mutually exclusive, starting a business or going to school. But if you are forced to choose, I would look very heavily at starting a business, because if you're in a financial situation that just doesn't let you, pursue your education, starting a business can probably provide you with the income that you need so that you can pursue your education at another time. So there you have that. What is the number one characteristic of successful people, in my opinion? I think there's actually two. I'm going to give you two here, and I would flip-flop depending on what time of day you ask me. But for the most part, my answer to that is usually patience. A lot of people don't have patience. They go in, they start a business, or they start some endeavor, and their expectations are so high. When they don't have immediate gratification, they quit and they go on and do something else. And then when that doesn't provide immediate gratification, they quit that and they go on and do something else. that mindset, in my opinion, really sets you up for being taken advantage of. And just, I'm answering this, like I said, off the top of my head, but just to give you an example that I've been thinking about recently, there are people online that are selling courses for various things which, let's just say, I have a healthy level of doubt as to whether they have any knowledge at all, much less any expertise in it. There's one person in particular that my YouTube feed has been flooded with over the past 30 days, where he is selling courses on real estate investing, Amazon, drop shipping, cryptocurrency, investing in stocks. What am I trying to say here? Option trading, and 2 or 3 other things. And if I understand his channel correctly, he's about 21 years old. Yeah, no. I'm not trying to be an ageist here and show any. I'm not trying to disregard anyone for their age. But with that said, he's not an expert in all of these things, and it's quite likely he's not an expert in any of these things. He's trying to sell courses. And if you are on the other side of the camera and you're watching his videos, you buy one of his courses for cryptocurrency and it doesn't work out, and then you buy, so you move on. You don't make money fast enough, so you move on, and you buy one of his courses for options trading, and again, there you don't make money the way you thought you were going to make money, and you move on. It just, if you don't have the patience to really stick with something and learn about it in depth, success will always elude you, and it also makes you potential target for scam artists. So do be careful. But the other trait I was thinking of, in addition to patience, is curiosity. I can't begin to tell you how much credit I give to just the basic trait that I have of being just almost endlessly curious about everything, or at least curious about when I see something that kind of gets my attention. I want to pick it apart. I want to see how it works. You all have heard me on this channel talk about my interest in business models. I think it's fascinating how 2 people can be in the same business and have completely different business models, and they're both successful. So, that is those are the 2 characteristics that I think are most useful, and things that 2 characteristics I think that you really need to nurture in yourself. But patience and curiosity. Don't be afraid to turn over some rocks when you're curious, and when you find something that looks interesting, give it time to develop. Dig a little deeper, really learn what's going on, and see if it's not something that you can benefit from. But anyway, I've got a whole list of questions here. I'm sure there will be more coming. If you found this at all useful, please hit like and subscribe down below. If you have questions of your own, hey, that's why there's a comment section down there. And I've got more than enough questions here for a part 2, so I'm probably going to go ahead and do a part 2 here shortly. But I appreciate you watching. And like I said, hit like and subscribe, ask some questions, and we'll be back in the next video.